Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Kinds of Kindness. This was directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. I'd say this is a pretty highly anticipated film, especially considering the fact that Lanthimos' last two films were Poor Things and The Favorite. Both films were quite critically successful. Though if those two types of films tickled your fancy, I think you might be a little perplexed by what you see in Kinds of Kindness because it's not like either of those two films. I say it's a lot closer to the more stilted, bizarre allegories that are examining the human condition. Movies like Dogtooth or The Lobster or even Killing of a Sacred Deer. It's like he's returning to his roots. So if you are more a fan of his previous works, then I think you're going to find a lot to admire in Kinds of Kindness. This is a movie that it's telling three very different parables. It felt almost like an exercise for Lanthimos, and it's like he's returning to a playground where he has all these different actors he's worked with that he clearly loves and he trusts, and he's just kind of letting them roam around, as if there's some traveling company within the theater of the absurd. Just like most Yorgos movies, there's like heavy Kubrickian influence with the stilted dialogue and the steady dolly tracking shots. There's just a numbing quality to everything in this movie that every once in a while is disrupted by something that is really prickly, and it can even get brutal. But I think it's all meant to be a satirical examination of the world. And as I've said before, it feels as if with these types of movies, it's like Lanthimos is housing all of these humans in some sort of mock society, and he just kind of wants to see how they function. It's like he's examining humans underneath a microscope, as if they are mental patients in a psych ward. But what I enjoy is that Yorgos seems to be very fascinated by human behavior and just like the little tics that we have, all of these formalities that we have in society that we wreathe around ourselves as some sort of weird comfort. And it's very important, at least to me, that we have this feeling of all these social protocols, this superficial etiquette. It needs to feel more real than things that are actually real, things that are breaking beyond civility. Kind of reminds me of that Ed Kemper story. Ed Kemper, the famous serial killer. He used to murder young women that were coming home from college. He would murder these women violently, yet he was very prudish about sex. And it's like one of these women that he captured, he stabbed, but he accidentally kind of grazed her boob at the same time. And he was like, "Oh, pardon me, I'm so sorry," right before he's gonna kill her. Feeling embarrassed sexually in that way in the midst of the most cruel behavior you can think of. That is just quintessential Yorgos Lanthimos behavior that he loves to explore. And we're seeing all of these ideas in Kinds of Kindness, but we're seeing them explored through different characters, different themes, whether it's like recurring dreams or like the idea of food or animals. And as I said before, we have this ensemble cast that is part of this theater of the absurd, and they exist in each of these stories, but as different characters. So in one story, an actor might, take on a main role, then maybe in the next one, they might play a character that is completely different from the previous one, and maybe it's more a supporting role in the background. But a lot of times I will say an actor might play a role, and whatever he's embodying within that is going to reverberate into other different characters that person is going to play. So there's definitely a consistency. And you might ask yourself as an audience member, why explore all of this within three different stories like this? And to me, I don't know. To me, it's like seeing all these different ideas, but the way we can mold and shape them into these different human templates. Every human being on the planet is capable of the same range of emotions. We all kind of have a baseline, and some people are going to stretch those emotions bigger, some are going to, keep them smaller. It really just depends, I think, on the person. It depends on your environment or your interactions, and it's almost as if Lanthimos is taking each actor, and it's like, each person is a template that is working themselves into some sort of social situation. Some people might find the stories disjointed, but I think when you step back, the arc of all three of them is quite visible from afar. The first story has Jesse Plemons starring, and it's kind of like a meditation on free will, but kind of filtered through the modern lens. Plemons I really like in this first section just because, he has these beady eyes that are chillingly opaque. And because of that, you never know where he's going to go as an actor, but yet no matter where he does go, it's like the effort is so minimal. So I think he really lends himself to this type of deadpan acting, especially this type of humor, especially this type of darkness. It's like he can embody all of those facets. I would say the second story is more kind of about the nature of relationships, particularly like marital in nature. And then we move into the final story, which is starring Emma Stone, and it's about a sex cult of sorts. So Emma kind of starts off as a supporting role and then slowly becomes the main star, and then the Jesse Plemons character it's kind of the opposite. He starts out as the star and he kind of, fades into the background slowly. And as he shifts more into the background, he started to give me more Philip Seymour Hoffman vibe so far as his acting is concerned. And yet there was a flatness or something about it that kept him from shining in each role. I felt like more he was disappearing little by little. Whereas for me, Emma Stone, just emotionally, she grows and grows as a presence. Her final character in the movie, even though we don't know much about her, we know none of her background really, she connects to the character brilliantly. She fills all the dead space of her character with like this dominant feminine bite as well as a cynicism. And she plants these emotional hooks in us where it's like we want to keep exploring with her. We're constantly intrigued by her. And I think that, I don't know, it captures the mood perfectly for me. The essence of cruelty as a spark across this like long stretch of banality is exactly what I want to see. And yet the idea of these smaller stories kind of linking together to create a whole experience as a singular film, it didn't quite harmonize for me. While so many of the stories are interesting and so many of the archetypes are interesting, it felt like we couldn't fill those archetypes with enough resonance and depth before we had to move into the next story. It's a tough film, and it's a long film, and it feels long, and it's the kind of one that you might fight initially, and I think it might take multiple viewings for you to warm up to it a bit. And yet the filmmaking is so strong that you are at least intrigued and pulled in initially to his world, as bizarre as it is. But just knowing what Lanthimos is capable of, especially, in the most recent past, there is a sameness to the ideas here that I feel like he has explored in more rich ways, and he's just developed more conceptually in other pieces. At times, Lanthimos does feel a little bit symbolically overwrought to me. Yes, I would say that in this film, and even in a movie like Killing of a Sacred Deer. That's a film that I absolutely love, and I've seen it many times, but yeah, that's a complaint I have. And yet, it did feel a lot more cohesive and more resonant, because it wasn't just a short story. It felt like we could really marinate in the symbols and get a little bit more freaky with them. When it comes to Kinds of Kindness, obviously, like, it's a really overwhelming type of movie, and I'm going to be thinking about it for a very long time. There is a lot here that is unique and special and perfect for, of course, Lanthimos fans and cinephiles. But again, it just feels like we're recycling a lot of things that I feel like Lanthimos has done with a lot more commitment and conviction. I almost wonder if Lanthimos, at least for now, has explored as much as he can in that particular style of filmmaking, which is why I was really enjoying the way he was developing as a filmmaker. I was loving, movies like The Favorite and Poor Things. Those, again, just feel fully formed. They feel sharper, more settled into a confidence, and they're just gorgeous films. And yes, they satisfy more my personal taste. It all comes down to personal taste at the end of the day. But it's not to say, again, that I don't like this film. I admired a lot about it. I found it to be really bold, and I do think it is one of the most interesting films of the year and one of the best made films of the year. It's going to take multiple viewings from me, of course, but just my initial reaction is that the final product felt a little monotonous, a little bit disappointing. This is one of those movies I really think you are going to either love it or you're going to hate it. I cannot wait to see the reaction. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commissioned portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. I'd also like to give a shout out to my patrons who are fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for your support, and welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.